Hi everyone, here I am in the chicken coop at Cuckoo Down Farm, and I'm going to see if we can get some chickens to come over and have a little peck at this. And I'm also going to tell you a wonderful story about eggs. These are eggs that belong to a duck, not a chicken, and it starts like this. It's called Jemima Puddleduck. What a funny sight it is to see a brood of ducklings with a hen. Listen to the story of Jemima Puddleduck, who was annoyed because the farmer's wife would not let her hatch her own eggs. Her sister-in-law, Mrs. Rebecca Puddleduck, was perfectly willing to leave the hatching to someone else. "I wish to hatch my own eggs. I will hatch them all by myself," said Jemima Puddleduck. And I'm going to just show you the picture of Jemima. There we are. And in the olden days, they used to take the ducks' eggs away from the ducks and give them to chickens to hatch out because chickens took better care of them. This is my chicken called Midnight, and she's having a bit of a feast there, aren't you? Jemima tried to hide her eggs, but they were always found and carried off. She became quite desperate. She decided to make a nest right away from the farm. So she set off on a fine spring afternoon along the cart road that leads over the hill. She was wearing a shawl and a poke bonnet. When she reached the top of the hill, she saw a wood in the distance. She thought that it looked like a safe, quiet spot. Here comes the chicken Hannah. Hello, Hannah. They found the very lovely treat we've got here for them. Jemima Puddleduck was not much in the habit of flying. She ran downhill a few yards, flapping her shawl, then she jumped off into the air. She flew beautifully when she'd got a good start. She skimmed along over the treetops until she saw an open place in the middle of the wood where the trees and brushwood had been cleared. And I'll just show you a wonderful picture of Jemima sailing through the air, flying away. I wonder what's going to happen next. Jemima alighted rather heavily and began to waddle around in search of a convenient dry nesting place. She rather fancied a tree stump among some tall foxgloves. But seated upon the stump, she was startled to find an elegantly dressed gentleman reading a newspaper. He had black prick ears and sandy-coloured whiskers. "Quack," said Jemima Puddleduck with her head and her bonnet on one side. "Quack." The gentleman raised his eyes above his newspaper and he looked curiously at Jemima. "Madam, have you lost your way?" he said. He had a long bushy tail which he was sitting on as the stump was somewhat damp. Jemima thought him mighty handsome. She explained she had not lost her way. She was trying to find a convenient dry nesting place. Now I'm going to show you a picture of the gentleman, and I wonder if you can tell what sort of creature he is. Can you see him? And let's see what happens to Jemima. "Is that so indeed?" said the gentleman, looking curiously at Jemima. He folded up his newspaper and put it in his pocket. Jemima complained of the superfluous hen. "Indeed, how interesting. But as to a nest, there is no difficulty. I have a sack full of feathers in my shed. No, my dear madam, you will be in nobody's way. You may sit there as long as you like," said the bushy, long-tailed gentleman. He led the way to a very retired, dismal-looking house among the foxgloves. It was built of wood and turf. There were 2 broken buckets, one on top of the other, as a chimney. "This is my summer residence. You would not find my winter house, quite so convenient," said the hospitable gentleman. The gentleman opened the door and showed Jemima in. Let me show you a wonderful picture of his face. Does he look like he's going to be a good friend to Jemima? Let's see what happens. We have some gentlemen rather like this in our woods here at Cuckoo Down Farm. The shed was full of feathers. It was almost suffocating, but it was very comfortable and very soft. Jemima Puddleduck was rather surprised to find such a vast quantity of feathers. Oh, I'm being bothered by a fly. But it was very comfortable. She made a nest with no trouble at all. When she came out, the sandy-whiskered gentleman was waiting. He was so polite, he almost seemed sorry to let her go home for the night. He promised to take great care of her nest until she came back the next day. He said he loved eggs and ducklings. He should be proud to see a fine nestful in his woodshed. Jemima Puddleduck came every afternoon. She laid 9 eggs in the nest. They were greeny white and very large. The foxy gentleman admired them intensely. He used to turn them over and count them when Jemima was not there. At last, Jemima told him that she intended to start to sit next day. And I will bring a bag of corn with me so that I need never leave my nest until my eggs are hatched. They might catch cold, said the conscientious Jemima. Madam, I beg you not to trouble yourself with a bag. I will provide you with oats. But before you commence your tedious sitting, I intend to give you a treat. Let us have a dinner party all to ourselves. May I ask you to bring up some herbs from the farm garden to make a savoury omelette? Sage and thyme, a mint and 2 onions and some parsley. I will provide lard for the the omelette, said the hospitable gentleman with the sandy whiskers. Jemima Puddleduck was a simpleton. Not even the mention of sage and onions made her suspicious. She went round the farm garden, nibbling off snippets of all the different sorts of herbs that are used for stuffing roast duck. And she waddled into the kitchen and got 2 onions out of a basket. The collie dog met her coming out. What are you doing with those onions? Where do you go every afternoon all by yourself, Jemima Puddleduck? Jemima was rather in awe of the collie dog, so she told him the whole story. The collie listened. With his wise head on one side, he grinned when she described the polite gentleman with the sandy whiskers. Here's the collie dog. I'll just show you this picture. Every farm has a collie dog. Ours is called Lily. She's rather like that, but she's black and white. If you've come to stay here, you'll know her. He asked several questions about the wood and about the exact position of the house and the shed. Then he went out and trotted down the village. He went to look for 2 foxhound puppies who were out at walk with the butcher. Jemima Puddleduck went up the cart road for the last time on a sunny afternoon. She was rather burdened with bunches of herbs and 2 onions in a bag. She flew over the wood and alighted opposite the house of the bushy, long-tailed gentleman. He was sitting on a log. He sniffed the air and kept glancing uneasily around the wood. When Jemima alighted, he jumped. Come into the house as soon as you've looked at your eggs. Give me the herbs for the omelette. Be sharp. He was rather abrupt. Jemima Puddleduck had never heard him speak like that. She felt surprised and uncomfortable. When she was inside, she heard pattering feet around the back of the shed. Someone with a black nose sniffed at the bottom of the door and locked it. Jemima became much alarmed. A moment afterwards, there were the most dreadful noises, barking, baying, growls and howls, squealing and groans. And nothing more was ever seen of that foxy, whiskered gentleman. And here is the collie and the 2 foxhounds sorting him out. Presently kept the collie opened the door of the shed and let out Jemima Puddleduck. Unfortunately, the puppies rushed in and gobbled up all the eggs before he could stop them. The collie dog had a bite on his ear and both puppies were limping. Jemima Puddleduck was escorted home in tears on account of those eggs. She laid some more in June, and she was permitted to keep them herself, but only 4 of them hatched. Jemima Puddleduck said it was because of her nerves, but she had always been a bad sitter. Here she is. She did have 4 little babies in the end, and that's the end of the story. Now, let us see if we have any eggs here. Our chickens lay eggs every day, and we'll see how many we've got. Come and have a look. Have a guess and see how many you think there's going to be. Let's have a quick look. Oh, look. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and one little one makes 5. Thank you, chickens, that's fantastic. We will also be having an omelette for lunch. Bye-bye for now.